my YouTube friends? Welcome back. Thank you so much again for watching and subscribing. I really appreciate it. Feedback's been amazing. Today I kind of wanted to talk to you about, one thing that came to mind was, what's been a stress and what's been kind of a reward for being a minimalist. So, random tangent. One thing you're going to have to forgive me on is public speaking. I'm not a very good public speaker. I'm kind of what they call absent-minded, or sometimes a little bit scatterbrained at times. This just kind of goes with who I am in the territory and stuff. So my apologies if that drives you crazy if I stutter once in a while. But to make a long story short, one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was one thing that's a real reward for me, and one thing that's kind of a stressor when it comes to being a minimalist. So I had a lot of stuff, and being a minimalist, I think people are very much overconsumed and materialistic, and I think one of the reasons why they are this way is they find security in the things that they have. The more things people have, I think that's kind of a message that's being sent to people. Me myself being in the marketing industry and focusing a lot on customer interactions when I was going through school, and that's what I did for a job for many years. I feel that society is sending a message to people that the more you consume, the more comfortable you'll be. And I find that completely backwards. The more stuff that I had, it didn't make me any happier. Having a brand new sports car didn't make me any happier. It's kind of this never-ending cycle. People are happier pursuing a goal rather than achieving that goal. And I find that, I thought that was wild, but it's what they call the hedonic treadmill. If you guys have ever, you want to read something really cool and dig into it, check out the hedonic treadmill. And I think people that are minimalists have kind of jumped off that treadmill, and they're like, well, I'm going to find things that are, truly rewarding. And I could give you 1,000, quotes and all this other jazz. Basically everything that you have is borrowed. You can't leave life with anything. And, an example is that money is basically time that you're exchanging for products that is made by machines. It only takes minutes, but that currency that you're using, that could have taken you an hour or 2 hours or, weeks or months in order to buy something that was built in minutes. And that's just, you're always exchanging time for time. And how much is your time really worth? Because everybody's given a finite amount of time on this earth. And I found that analogy was pretty interesting as well. And another analogy that I've heard was that, somebody that spends $1,000 on a watch, right? You've got a watch that costs you $1,000, and then it will tell the same time as somebody who's got a watch that costs them $70 or $50 for a watch. Even a $50 watch, pretty nice watch. I mean, mine was $30, and it looks nice. So I mean, they still tell the same time. And are people really identifying with that? Scares me, is that people have to have the brand new watch and look flashy, and they're legit judged because of that. So that kind of ties into one of my stressors, is that society, because I'm frugal and because maybe I'm always clean, but I drive a van. I mean, I think I dress fairly normal, but I bargain shop and stuff like that. I think that, that comes with some negative connotations, and I feel like people judge it. I think that people have stigmas against that. I know you guys, as the van life community, have noticed stigmas with sleeping in your vans, even though, there are a lot of van life people that have plenty of money, that work, that are contributing to society, that are great people, that, aren't criminals, or, not judging based on your I'd never judge somebody, of course, but I think that is kind of sad that we are judging people based on, how flashy they are rather than who they are. And I'll say it a million times, I think the wisest people in society are the ones that can look past all that negative judgment or all those stereotypes and say, oh, you know what, this person's awesome to hang out with. He or she brings a lot of value to the table. They make me feel good about myself. So I want to be around that person, and that's what I value in a person, is not necessarily what's on the outside, but what's on the inside. Does that person make me feel good about myself? So, in a nutshell, that's one of the stressors, is that I think there's a lot of negative stigmas, and I think that society puts a lot of pressure on people like me and other minimalists, and I think that that's wholeheartedly unfair. The price of everything is not going to come back down. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine that works at Walmart, and I said to her, it's funny, the cost of produce hasn't went down. It's actually went up, which blows my mind, because they laid off all of these cashiers, and, I understand that having these electronic checkouts, these self-checkouts, employs a whole new group of people that can fix them, that can program them. I understand that, and that's great. I think adding jobs, legit jobs, is a great thing like that. But not having cashiers, and it might be political or whatever, and I don't want to get into politics with anybody, but not having cashiers, companies are saving a lot of money not having cashiers because they don't have to pay them. Basically, their jobs got replaced. They got augmented. So they were replaced. And I think that sucks if you were a cashier or whatever. And that's kind of sad. But to make a long story short, that was my rant. I think that produce, if these companies are saving all this money, then the cost of goods should have went down, but instead they went through the roof. And I could never imagine paying like $6 for eggs. That blows my mind. I go over to my neighbor, or I go to my dad. My dad will be another video that we'll talk about, because he's an interesting person. He's definitely an off the grid kind of guy, and he lives on it's kind of like a hobby farm. But so anyway, I never thought I'd pay $6 for a thing of eggs. That blows my mind. And I can go over to my neighbor who raises chickens, and he's selling them for $2 a dozen, which, So, on to one of the good things of being minimalist that makes me feel better. And it kind of ties in with my original tangent. I think that people that have things, they buy stuff because it makes them feel more secure in life, more secure in their marriage, more secure in who they are. And that's sad. I think that people really need to take a look at who they are and how they're spending their money and all that jazz. But not having things makes me having more income or having more money in the bank and getting a good deal and all this jazz makes me feel better. It stresses me out way less having less stuff. I don't have all these things to, that are, I don't have to rely on things that make me happy. What I rely on is not really other people, but experiences and knowledge that I gain and, time I spend with others. I heard a quote, my grandfather, who's still around, great guy, he's 97 and very, very spry for his age, very, very spry. he said he was reading something recently, and he's a very forward thinker. He said that the worker these days are like 5 times more efficient than workers back in the I don't know what it was, 50s or something like that. Workers these days, because of technology and just because of how much we've learned and how much we know, and based on how well we multitask and everything, we're like 5 times more efficient. Younger generations are, the youth and everything is very efficient these days. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, and this is just kind of my opinion. Maybe instead of, 40-hour work week has been the same since Henry Ford basically invented it. So if we're as efficient, shouldn't we only be working 10 hours a week to have the same efficiency? But what's happening? People are working. There was a study done worldwide, and Americans work, I don't know if it's like 1,900 hours, close to 1,900 hours per year. And there are other fully developed industrialized nations that are working, 1,600 hours a year, and that's considered the norm, or less than that. So that kind of blows my mind. And one thing that he told me was, he said, when I had a family, it was just me. It was just me going out, relying on a paycheck. Your grandmother went out and did Meals on Wheels, volunteered her time, gave her time to charity, helped other people out. And yeah, she did a couple of things, baking goods to make money, of course, on the side. But she had to raise a family. And he could afford a car. He sent all his kids to college, paid for a car, paid for a house, paid up for all their bills. They never went hungry, all this. And they didn't, they lived a decent life when they were raising my parents. And that blows my mind. Is that they were able to sustain an entire household with one person's income. And nowadays, you couldn't even think about that. Both, you have to have a husband and a wife to barely afford the basic necessities in life, as well as a house. And I mean, kids, I couldn't even imagine bringing kids into this scenario. So that's just another thing to think about. But to come back to my original claim, I think that having less stuff makes me feel more secure, makes me feel better. And finding those good deals as a minimalist, you're always you're shifting your focus to other things, to what really bring you joy in life. So with that being said, that results in the conclusion of my random video. It's been a minute since I've posted. We lost a lot of our snow, so I figured I'd take the van out for a quick drive today and kind of wash her off a little bit, even though it is getting a little snowy out right now. We're due for another storm, which is weird. So anyway, thank you guys so much for your support. Don't forget to spread the love. Don't forget to spread the Soupier channel. Make sure you watch and subscribe. Thank you so much for everything you guys do and your feedback.